You can't really say much. Hi, Maddie.
Are you trying to go live on YouTube?
Okay, it does. I can no longer tell which audio I'm listening to, so yes. I can no longer tell yeah, that's also visible, both in the description and on the video. Okay. That's also visible.
It's really great that you ask for opinions and it feels more engaging rather than just joining and watching something. I would like to do one. I would like to do one whenever possible, but we're so busy. Let me prepare something and then maybe I can tell you about it. I can't promise. Yeah. I'm joining a new company. Last time we talked, I told you I'm looking for a job. I found the company and they are using Circuit. That's why I'm really eager about it and to see. I also have a project here that illustrates some best practices. Maybe I can share some notes.
I heard you earlier. Let me check.
Let me check it as well.
Yeah, it's looks like it. I mean, yeah, I can't hear you either. I heard you earlier. Okay, I can hear myself though.
Let me check it as
Yeah, it looks like it. I mean, yeah, I can't hear you either.
Let me check.
Okay, I can hear myself though.
Hello, 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 hello. How about this? Filter.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hello, does this work maybe?
Okay, I can hear myself.
I just checked it and I can hear you.
Okay, I can hear you now. I can hear you now.
So now
Yeah, I can hear you too.
There was a missing. Okay, seems like there was a missing audio input.
Does this work maybe? Okay, I can hear myself.
For my microphone, it
I
was
just
missing
checked it
input.
and I can hear you.
I can hear you now. I can hear you now.
Yeah, I can hear you too.
There was a missing. Okay, seems like there was a missing audio input. Does this work maybe? Okay, now I think I'm hearing myself as well because you are not mute, Hannah. So maybe. So it seems like the sound is fixed. I guess. Cool.
I think so.
All right. Yeah, if not, then people
I just
in
keep
the live
muting.
stream, please let us know. I can hear you, but speak louder, please. Let me
I kept
increase.
muting the call and switch over into YouTube, but I think it works now.
Yeah. Yeah, my microphone is set to max. So I don't know. Madeline, if you can maybe increase the sound on your side, maybe. Cool. Anyway, let's get started then. Yeah, the first topic was animations. So basically, the topic is pretty wide, pretty like we can go pretty wild with animations in Compose. The cool thing about them is that they are easy to work with. Now, there was not specific question about animations, like how can I do A, how can I do B. So maybe I can just give an overview of the things like how to get started and what are the things to pay attention to. And then maybe, like if you have additional questions, then we can make additional videos or maybe even live stream for specific topics. Now here I have some sort of screen. I'm just gonna get rid of a bunch of things here. So let's maybe take all of this and remove. So you can see here on the preview on the right hand side, what do we have? So how about I create a box here first? I'm gonna have some sort of modifier. I'll apply some properties to this box, and then I'll have a button that will have some on click that will toggle an animation. And then here, the button will have a text toggle animation, something like that. Cool. Now, the idea is that when I click on this button, some animation will happen. Now, how do I toggle animation? So let's say that I have two sort of states that are going to define the animation. So like the animation will sort of run between these two. And the most simple thing is like I'm gonna have a boolean, and then when true, I'm gonna animate somewhere. Then when false, I'm gonna animate somewhere else. I'm gonna try something like that. So first, I will define here a variable that's gonna be something like is toggled. That's gonna be remember. mutable state of false. So by default, we are going to be false. Okay. Now, when it comes to animation, there is, as I said, very, very nice APIs that we can use to animate. And all of them are based on an API that is like animate value or like animate something as. So let's take a look at the possible APIs and explain what I mean. So for example, I could animate the width of these books. Let's say I'm gonna have width that's gonna be by animate, and then as you can see here, we have a bunch of APIs that are animate something as state. So they're all based on some sort of animate some sort of value as state. Now we can animate colors, DPs, floats, ints, whatever really we want. And most of these are sort of, we can also group them if we want. So let's take a look at the size, for example, or the DP as state. So here, let's say that this box by default is going to be, I'm gonna give it a width of 50 dp, and then I'm gonna comment this out for a little bit. Then I'm gonna have a height of also 50 dp. I'm gonna have a, let's say I'm gonna clip this to a rounded corner shape, and the rounded corner shape takes in the angle, like how much corner do I want. The corner is gonna be, let's say, or actually size is gonna be, let's say 12 dp, and then I'm gonna give it a background, let's say color red, so we can see it. Come on, color red, like that. Now, what I want to do is I want to expand the width and maybe also change the corner radius. I want to animate that when I click on this button. So when I click, what's going to happen is I will say is toggle is different than what it was before. So how do I animate this? So like I can define animate DP as state, and then here I would say the target value is going to be, if I am toggled, then it's going to be, let's say 350 dp, otherwise 50 dp, like the beginning. And then we can define additional properties here. We're going to take a look what we can do, but basically this is the width. And now instead of hard coding the width here, we can put that width that comes in. So that's like something simple that we can do, far less than ideal, but let's take a look what we've done. By the way, if there is any comments in the chat, then please mute your microphone. Okay, cool. So if somebody from the call, if you want to comment or add something or ask question, just unmute yourself and shoot, because I'm not hearing. All right, so what we can do here in the preview is basically we can start interactive modes, and we can see what we are doing basically by toggling. And this is how the animation works now. Now, additionally, what we could do is we could define another variable or animation that will animate the corner shape, the radius. So we can say something like radius by animate dp as state. The target is gonna be, if is toggled, then it's gonna be, let's say 50 dp, else 12 dp. And then here we could put that one. And now let's give it a try. And as we can see, it animates also the corner radius between 12 now and 50 here. Cool, right? Okay, so that's sort of some of the basics. What else we could do is we can define how this animation is going to, like what's going to be the type of animation. So here we could, like, if I open the animate DPS state, by default it has the animation spec to be spring. So it uses a spring animation. What we could do is we can change it to something like animation spec, like we can, let's say, make it a tween. We can change the duration, like let's say to 350. I think 350 might be the default. Let's say 450 so we can see it better. And then delay, we don't want delay. The easing could be something like linear out, slow in easing, something like that. And then I would have to do the same for this one, because otherwise there might be a glitch between them. So let's, actually I have enabled the K2 on this studio, so maybe that's why it is constantly asking me to recompile. Otherwise it was working okay. Okay, so this looks cool. So I can do the same on this one. And see how does it work. Okay, so that's nice, but let's actually maybe remove this 450 because it feels a little bit, yeah, out of shape, not what I'm looking for. Yeah, that looks better. Okay, cool. But one issue with this, let me run this on a device or emulator basically, and see something that I want to show you that you have to be aware of when animating like this. So what I'm doing here, I'm animating a property, which is this width and radius based on some sort of other state. And I am directly using these values here in the modifier. So if I toggle, everything works fine, no issues. But let me actually open the layout inspector, which will show us recompositions. So I'm going to expand here the layout. And what we are looking for is this box, recomposition. So if I toggle the animation, look at how many times it does recompose when animating. So this is less than ideal, basically, and we can do better job in this regard. So how do we do that? We can make some optimizations, basically. Instead of applying the width and the height, the width and a corner radius like that, we can use another sort of modifiers, which are lambdas. So for example, there are a bunch of them available. Something like draw behind, draw with cache, draw with content, or graphics layer. Now they're having different usages, each of them. Graphics layer is like if you want to change, for example, some transitions, for example, transition XY, or scale, or yeah, that kind of like rotations. I think, yeah, scale, rotation, and transition is something we can do with a graphics layer. And the other ones are basically for drawing. So like, let's say here, I could use something like draw behind. I can take. Draw behind is basically going to draw behind the actual composable. So I'm gonna give this composable, let's say, I'm gonna hard code the width that it can take, but then I'm gonna draw behind it based on the actual width that comes in. So what I could do here is, instead of having the clip and the background here, I can draw that. And I can draw by drawing a rectangle here. And I have different options here, whether I'm gonna use color, whether I'm gonna use something else like offsets, anything. I can also animate the alpha. And then here for color, I'm gonna pass, again, the color red. And then for size, I'm gonna pass size, which should come from compose UI geometry. And then in the size, I'm gonna say the width to pixel, because the width actually is dp, and I have to convert it to float, which is there is a extension function that I can use to convert it to pixels, which are float. And then the height would be, yeah, the same, 50 dp to pixel. I'm not changing the height. And next to that, I can also animate the corner. What was it? Corner radius. I think this should be draw round rectangle so that it allows me to put corner radius. Then here I can say corner radius, and here I would say the radius to pixel, something like that. So now I should have the same, pretty much the same animation. Although now what happened, actually it moved it to the left because it takes now 350 by default, and now we are gonna just draw behind. And by default we are drawing the same square, and we can animate by toggling. So if I just open the interactive mode, so yeah, this is basically how would it look like. Of course, there are some glitches here, but if I run it on a regular device, they won't appear as such here. And what is more important is to actually take a look at our compositions here. So what is the optimization that we've done? So again, take a look at the box. I'm gonna toggle the animation, boom. So it is not recomposing as much, right? And okay, so the last thing that I would like to do is actually start from the center and then animate it as it was animating before, or similar to that. And to do that, I'm gonna show you, I'm gonna do actually one more thing here, which is the graphics layer. Yeah, there is a question. As I mentioned, just unmute yourself and shoot the question.
Yeah, I just didn't want to talk over you. So maybe can you turn off the agenda on the YouTube stream, because it doesn't block too much, but it does block a little bit of the video.
Let me check. Yeah, but then for new people that are joining, they won't see actually.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe turn it back on when you introduce a new topic. I don't know. But earlier
Let me see
in
how does
the
it look
studio.
like.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not that bad, I would say. So let me maybe move it.
Not that bad, but maybe making it a tiny bit smaller. I don't know. Earlier, it did block a little bit of the UI inspector thing.
Okay.
Okay, that's all.
Let's take a look. So here in the graphics layer, what I would do is I can basically, as I said, do something like transitions, as you can see. Transitions, I can do alpha, I can change, I can do rotation. And yeah, basically those sort of transformative parameters I can change. And for this one, I only need to change the translation X, which is going to be, how would that go? It would be something like, I'll need 350 dp minus the actual width, and that would be together 2 pixels. And then I should divide this by 2, I guess. So let me wrap this like that and then do /2f. Let's give this a try. Yeah, so it is in the middle now. And if I toggle the animation, yeah, it animates. There is this movement at the end, but basically that's because I am running in the interactive mode. I think if I just run in on a regular device. Let me see how does that appear on the stream. Okay. So yeah, once again, let's take a look at the box here. So this is what we are following. So if I animate, you see the recompositions are not happening as it was before when I was directly using the properties. It is not recomposing that much. So
Hi, Joe.
this is cool. And yeah, basically this is the animation that we were looking for. Now those are some basics, I would say, about animations. And yeah, the question that was asked was like, can we talk a little bit more about animations? But it wasn't concrete question. What about animations? So I just hopefully made a nice introduction to animations. It should be easy to animate just about anything. Just make sure that the things that you are animating, like these values, you are applying properly, or like if you could apply them properly through proper lambda modifiers rather than directly using the values, because otherwise you saw the issue with the recompositions, which might not be that much of an issue, but just to be aware of. Alrighty, so now yeah, go ahead. Somebody has a question?
Yeah, because I this was something similar to what I had in that interview. So in this case of this box now, I can just, in case of a text field now, let's say I want to exert this behavior in a text field, can I just put in the text field and put it on fill max width and it exerts this behavior? Is that okay? Or is there any side effect to that? Like putting the text field inside this box, then allow the box do the animation instead of applying the animation directly on the text field.
Would you mind repeating the question? I'm not sure if I got that correctly.
I said in the case where I want to animate a text field size
Okay. So which
to
property
something
do you
like
want to animate from the text field?
the length of the text field. So is it advisable to just put the text field on fill max width so that the box does the animation instead of the text field itself?
Um, I don't know. I would probably have to take a look. I mean, both options should be okay. I wouldn't say that you should avoid one over another. If you can make it work, just make sure the recompositions aspect.
Okay, because from what I see now, this has taken care of the recomposition. The box will take care of the recomposition issue. So just putting the text field inside should be, in my own understanding, should be okay. It's the fill max width.
The key here is that we are actually applying this like we are animating properties. Like when we toggle this, it causes the target value to change and it animates that
Okay.
based on the animation spec that we are giving here. So like the animation spec has some default timing. So like if, for example, let's say this is false, so it goes from from 50 to sorry, from 350 to 50, let's
Mm-hmm.
say, and it sort of makes that interpolation based on the time and this easing. So it knows like at which moment what's going to be the value, and we are applying that to a modifier. So like this is a box, but it's irrelevant whether this is a box or something else. What's important is how we are applying these properties.
Oh,
So like the modifier here plays the key role. Like this is a box, but could be column, could be anything.
okay. Because I was being skeptical about putting this draw behind in a text field. It didn't look like something that could be attached to a text field because if I'm drawing behind the text field, I won't be actually um take, modifying the length. I'll just be basically drawing behind. I don't know if you get me.
Yeah,
So
there are different draws, like draw with cache, draw behind, draw with content. So like you can take a look at the documentation to see actually
okay,
what is the difference between them, but in
okay,
general all of them should do the work. And also
all right.
keep in mind that the basic text, if you upgrade to the latest composed version now, the basic
Mm-hmm.
text allows you to also specify minimum and maximum font size. So like based on the available space, it is going to scale. This is very important and interesting for accessibility. This is something that was released pretty much today or yesterday.
Wow.
Yeah, so like you can specify auto size, something like that. Then you can define auto size where you can provide minimum and maximum font size, and then it's gonna take care of itself.
Wow. That's cool. I'll look at that. I'll look at that. I think the basic text field too is more. It has more functionalities than the outline text field, right?
Sorry, once again.
The basic text field has much more functionality than the outline text field. Right?
Yeah, outline text field is based on or built on top of basic text field. So like you can do lots of customizations with the basic one.
Okay, I'll look at that.
Cool. Okay, moving on. So let me reset this for now. So here we go. So how the application was before. The next one was the transitions. So I'm not sure what sort of transitions it meant. We touched about transitions here with the graphics layer. So like we could do those transitions like transition by X, by Y, rotations, scale, those kind of things. But maybe the question was more about transitions between the screens, because by default, the transitions between the screens is less than ideal in Compose. So for example, you have some screens, let's say this one, you go to sign up, the transition is sort of fading in and fading out the screens between themselves. However, here I have a custom animation that is similar to sort of iOS. So what happens here is I'm gonna actually hide the previews here because they are not now relevant. But what is relevant is to show these transitions and how that works. So let me open my app root, I guess, is or main app. This is a composable that hosts the main navigation. So here I've defined basically transitions between my screens. So the nav host allows us to define enter transitions, exit transitions, pop enter, and pop exit transitions. So enter transition is the transition that runs on the screen that comes in. Exit transition is the transition that that actually runs on the screen that goes away. Pop enter transition is the transition that runs on the how was this? So pop exit is the screen runs on the screen that goes away, and then pop enter is again the screen that comes in. So let's actually play a little bit with this so we can see how they work. So first one, enter transition, is the screen that comes in. So the screen that comes in, how does it enter into the thing? Like there are predefined transitions that we can use, like slide into container. So if you take a look into this function, it returns enter transition. So the type of it is enter transition. And if you take a look at the enter transition property here, it expects an enter transition basically. And by default, as you can see, it is fade in. And that's why the default animations or transitions between the screens are not as nice. So it says it slide into container towards left. So like it goes from the right towards the left. And the animation spec, I have set it to tween. So let's maybe change this duration to 1 second so that we can actually see it when we run. And the easing is fast out, slow in, easing by default. So let's keep it. Now let me run. I don't know why this is constantly changing. Let me run this and see. So if I go to the sign up, now we can actually see how this enters the screen. So that's the animation that runs when the screen enters. But like if you pay close attention when I'm clicking on this, there is another animation that runs on this screen that exits the screen. So that's the exit transition. So it scales down to target 0.9. So by default, the scale is 1, let's say 100%, but we want to scale down to 90%, and then the animation spec is tween, okay? That's less relevant, but what's relevant is to see actually how we are scaling out. So if you pay close attention, when the screen comes in, actually let me make this maybe 2 seconds, and then it's going to be more visible how this screen is scaling down when clicking on the button. So if I click, you see it scales down, and then this one comes in. Boom. And this is pretty much how it works on, I think iOS has this default animation or something like something similar maybe. And then the rest are also as I explained.
Can you
go ahead.
disable the can you disable the pop animations to see like is there any difference? Because the enter and exit are working fine. So what are those pop animations doing there?
Yeah, so there is default for them. If I don't do, like, let's maybe I think if I add time to this, it's gonna be more visible rather than, because these ones, if I comment out, then it's gonna fall back to the default, which is fade. Let's see. So this one's gonna run okay, but then this one is not. You see?
I think those are for the time when you pop them from backstack, like when you hit back and you call nav controller that pop up, those animations run.
Yeah, these animations, as I said, like pop enter is the animation that runs on the initial screen that comes back in. So the initial scale is like from where we left off. It was 0.9, so it comes from 0.9. And then it would enter to, because it says like what's initial one. And if I uncomment only this one, let's run and see. All right. So basically, only this one is missing now, like this screen going away, but the one beneath coming up, it's animated again. And then this one, the last one, is like how do we, the screen that goes away from the stack, how it is going to be animated. So essentially we are sliding it right. So this one says slide it right outside of the container. So all of them actually are playing a role. And then I think the timing should be also pretty much the same between them so that it's gonna run smoothly. And yeah. So there we go. And by the way, if you want to, for example, change this, we can do towards up, for example, and then it's gonna come from the bottom up. So you can have an animation that is like, I don't know, some older Android, I think it was like that when we were navigating between activities. So if I make this down, then we're gonna have that effect, maybe like that. Cool. And how you can generalize this further, if you want, for example, you can wrap this nav host, which has these default animations, into another function that's gonna be, let's say, sliding nav host, let's say. Then the defaults are gonna be these ones, and then you can provide the rest as optional arguments. And then then you can use, instead of nav host, you can use that sliding nav host, and then all the animations in your application are gonna be as you wish. Let me move this to return this back to left and right. And if you want to only change the transition of one particular screen, then you can go to the composable that defines it. Let's say, seems like I dropped my my connection dropped, it seems.
Yeah, you're back.
Yeah, it's fine now.
Okay. So what I was, where did you lose me?
Just showing how we can apply animation on a single composable.
So if you want to apply to a single, like if all the, like if we have this generic way of transitioning and we want to change only one particular screen, we go to the composable that defines it. And here we have the very same APIs. So if I go to here, copy all these, go to my sign up screen, paste them, and then say this one's gonna come up and will go down. The rest goes fine. Then let's run and see this in action. So for the sign up, it's gonna go from bottom, but the rest is gonna be from the left and to the right. Cool. Okay, that should wrap up the transitions. Custom layouts. Now, again, custom layouts was like part of the first question. It was like animation, transitions, and custom layouts. I really wouldn't know what custom layouts would mean, but there are more sort of lower level APIs in Compose. Maybe that was the question that we can use. And I'm just gonna touch a little bit on them. So basically, come on. So basically we are using this image column, they are all composables, and then like there are more sort of composables that are giving us more sort of that are allowing us to do more or like have more control. And most of the time, like I'm not sure if this question is referring to that, is like helping us to do something with the measurements, because the way how Compose is measuring the things before laying them out is different than a traditional view system. And essentially a composable knows about it, like the bounds of the parent. So like the parent has some sort of max, like since where until where does it go, and so the child actually can change its size within those bounds. Now, for example, if we want to have more control, we can use composables. Like let's say there is this box with constraints, which is like, again, not as low level of API, that is allowing us to actually access, for example, the width. So box with constraints. So I can have some sort of modifier here. And here it would say, it can give me like max width of the parent, basically is gonna be max width. So I can use them as properties, max width and max height. Basically those are in DPs, and I can leverage these properties to actually do some calculations on the layout that I'm gonna draw below. So let's say why this is useful. I can tell you a story. Back in the days I was working in a company, and very crucial feature of an application was we were showing a list of items, and then the first 6 items were promoted, and companies were paying to be somewhere on these 6 lists. So basically, based on the amount that they are gonna pay, they're gonna be in one of these 6 slots. So the application was supposed to show exactly 6 items in the list, the first 6, and then you can scroll down. And then what we've done, or how did I solve that issue, was that actually I said, for example, here, item height would be the max height. Come on. So this Android Studio is completely blocked. It is version meerkat. So also I have enabled the K2 plugin, K2 mode. So maybe that is why it is that slow. I don't know. But yeah, basically something like over 6, and then I have the DPs of each item, and then I can render here a lazy column where one item height would be this item height, something like that. Now, if we open the box with constraints, what does it use internally? Subcompose layout, which is lower level API that gives us more, sort of allows us to do more things, more customizations, but then like it comes with bigger responsibility. So we have to be careful what we are doing. Subcompose layout internally is using just layout. Where was it? Yeah, if you just dive deeper, you will find out it uses a layout. Okay, never mind. But yeah, basically what layout gives us is like we can take the measurements of the things that we are about to display, and then like it allows us to do the measurements and do the placing of the place of, like, they are called placeables, like the children of this layout that we are going to place basically on the subcompose on the canvas, and then we can basically do the measurements, and then based on the measurements we can place them accordingly what we want, how do we want them. And what I wanted to see is I really wanted to have to access this layout thingy, which is this one. And if you take a look at the documentation, it explains a lot about how everything works internally. And it says like for a composable, able to define its content according to the incoming constraints, see box with constraints. So which is like if you don't need that much of a low level things, you can just take a look into that one. It might do the work for you. And here it gives an example how we can actually do the measurements and how we can place the placeables. And what is interesting is that internally, like what we can leverage these APIs for is like if you want to do some sort of optimizations on the things that we are going to render. Let's say we want to render 5 items and not render the rest. Like the lazy column, what I'm alluding here to is like the lazy column internally is using this sort of thing. It is lazy list, and internally it uses lazy layout, which is basically doing that optimization of like not rendering everything, but render only the things that are currently going to be visible on the screen. So yeah, that is some maybe peeling out the onion a little bit about, I don't know if that's the meaning of the question about custom layout, but yeah, that's sort of a direction that somebody would start with. I think it's important to be aware of these APIs. Like box with constraints is mostly going to help you depending on what you like. In my experience with Compose, which is since 2002 to 2022, 23, somewhere there until now, or actually at the beginning when it was not even in production, I started playing with it. I never had a need to implement something with a layout. Like I did it only to play out back in the days, just to see how does it work. But I really didn't have any need so far to use it. So like the deepest one was box with constraints so far for production applications. Alrighty. Cool. Next up, let me see the agenda. circuit, which is composed during architecture. Now, I have to say, this is a disclaimer, I have only done a little bit of research about circuit. I don't know much about the details and how does it do the things internally. What is important is that the first time I heard about circuit was a presentation from the authors of the library. It was the last Kotlin here in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam. That was really like the beginning of it. And now when I was doing the research, I saw that they've done quite a bit of work on top of that. And that's great actually. So now, given that I don't have much experience, I have done only a research, I can give my opinion on it. And I think somebody else who did a research was Magdi, or maybe he has tried out, so he can also give some additional info on that if he would like to. He's here on the call. So what I saw was that actually they've done good job into sort of encapsulating the things around building UI. So the encapsulation is done well, so that they care of sort of retaining the state if you need to of a screen that is gonna be presented, and sort of the communication between your UI and, they call it a presenter, but basically a place where you keep the state. So if you can make a comparison with a standard way of doing the things, like let's say the UI is a composable, and then the composable sort of, you can hoist the state of this composable in a view model. And now you are communicating between your composable and a view model through some sort of flow. They have abstracted that away, and how you would do that now is like your view model basically becomes a presenter, and you have still your UI, and you glue these two together with a concept that they are calling a screen. So the screen communicate, like makes that gluing, that communication, like it allows you to communicate between these two, which actually makes the circuit. So the UI would send events to the presenter through that gluing of the screen, and then the presenter can send back state to the screen, and then the screen will render that state. So that comes in a circuit. Now that's great. What I like, what are the things that I found not so much, or maybe the things that, I mean, again, I have to admit that I didn't do much research or like dive deep, and I don't have experience building applications with this. So from the research that I've done, what I saw is like, it feels like this is something that works for them. It is like they are using this as a Slack application, which is very, very like giant code base, I would imagine. It's like application that is really full of functionality. Definitely works for them. For a simpler application, I'm not sure if you would like to deal with such complexity. It feels overly complex for simple things. So like, it feels like too much of an overhead to set it up and to start building. So it works for them, but I would say maybe it is overly complex for regular usage. Then it feels like it forces coupling between the state, the UI, and the navigation. So like, in one way, it is maybe a nice thing that they have rubbed this together. So like abstracted that away from you. Maybe it contributes to sort of simplicity or like less manual work. But on the other side, it might be very confusing, especially for people that are more of a beginners, or like not very, very, how to say, familiar with the unidirectional data flow, and people that are still having that, that are still not there with the mindset, I would say. So I'm not saying junior developers or beginners, but like people that are just getting started with Compose. It might be additional confusion. Then also, I noticed that actually there is this tight coupling with the navigation. They provide navigation themselves. Like there is a part of the circuit library is the navigation. Now, I don't think that that's a bad thing. It is coupled. We have to be aware of that. But on the flip side, if you are thinking that this, I mean, if you take in consideration the fact that this application allows you to do Kotlin multi-platform or supports Kotlin multi-platform, then you wouldn't have to care about navigation actually, especially for different targets. So it does that for you. So like it is a positive thing in a sense. They also, I noticed that they are also having shared element transitions. So like this navigation that they are providing, it also allows you to do shared element transitions.
Are you asking me?
Yeah, why
I back?
not?
Yeah, I haven't tried
Oh,
it.
you're
Hey,
muted.
Jeff, back.
Yeah, am I
You're
back?
muted. Yes, you are.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
So sorry.
The live stream also
Should go
works.
back live.
Okay.
I'm so sorry about this, guys. I do have connection issues for the last, I don't know, few days, and I called the provider. I think they should fix it, but yeah.
This stream looks to be seems to be working well. You were cut off where you said the last thing you noticed, and that's where you were gone.
Sorry, where did you lose me?
The last thing you noticed.
Yeah, the
and
last
then
thing
it
I
cut
noticed
off.
was about dependency injection. How would that integrate with dependency injection? I noticed in the documentation in some of the examples that it works okay with Hilt or Dagger if you're using still, Anvil, those sort of additional like things on top that are providing assisted inject. And or maybe they're having something inside the circuit itself that do the code generation. In fact, I'm sure that there was some artifact that does the code generation. I am not sure how would this integrate with Coin. So if you're using Coin already and if you want to start doing some sort of migrations towards circuit, I'm not sure how that migration would go. I wouldn't expect some sort of limitations, but just to be aware of the fact that there might be some sort of issues, because like for more complex screens where, for example, if a presenter who is the state, cool, but if the presenter has to actually talk to a repository, then you should define some sort of factory where you're going to have this binding. Now, if you can do that factory manually, probably doing that with Coin shouldn't be a problem. But yeah, I'm still not aware. Now, that's all I've done as a research in this regard. Maybe Magdi can add more on that if you would like to, based on your experience.
You did a great explanation, and that's a lot of things that I would also cover. Another downside, or I don't know, something that we're not used to that I have seen in the circuit is that, okay, we are used to have a view model. View model outlives the view, so your state would be preserved in configuration changes. But the presenter here is a composable. And so you can't have your composable survive a configuration change. If you want to like persist your state or any field, you have to manually define it by using remember savable or remember retain. And that's how you should save from configuration changes. Like automatically, it does not provide you. I don't know if it is something that we should care about. And also, like when configuration changes happen, I tested a view model and circuit. In the circuit one, there was a new API call that was fired, maybe because it did not survive the configuration change. But in the view model, it uses the cached state. That's another downside that I've seen. Maybe I can share the project with you and we can talk about it.
Yeah, I think that would be great if you could do that. It would definitely help. And I've noticed in some of the examples that a screen, for example, is serializable by default, I guess.
Yes,
then,
I think a screen should be serializable. So let me open
maybe if you could also make it a little bit bigger so that for people it will be easier to see. If you can increase the appearance font.
Let me try.
If you just go to the settings, and then in the top you have appearance, and then in the appearance you have like in percentage. Yeah, that's great. That's too much, maybe.
Is this fine?
That's too big, I would say.
So maybe this would be fine.
Yeah, that's great.
Is it okay?
Yeah, for sure.
So let's take a look at one of these screens.
Yeah.
So I think it's fine on YouTube.
Yeah.
So we have a presenter that is used instead of view model, and it has a composable function called present.
Yes.
And the thing I was talking about is this one, that, for example, here there's a scenario that I want to load a list when my app gets launched.
Correct.
So I have to use a launched effect to call this. And whenever there's a configuration change, this would be re-executed. But if you use a view model, it won't. And also here, like I have some fields in my state that I return here. Let me open up my state class. So I have my state class for loading, success, and failure.
Mm-hmm.
And if I want to save one of these, like for example, this one, when user rotates the device, it doesn't do it out of the box. I have to just create a new variable for that and then pass it down here. It won't do it by itself. I have to provide it here when I'm returning this state.
Yeah, so it has to be wrapped
when
in
I was
in a observable container, basically.
Yeah.
Cool.
And for me, I was like, why should I use circuit? I couldn't find any reason that, like, what are the benefits of using circuit? Because sometimes it looks so strange, but again, I don't know why. Like, and this is the injection that you talked about. So we have to make a connection between our screen and presenter and the composable, so they would be tied up together and work together. I think this looks so strange if you come from view model world, but maybe you have some I don't know, some points. What are the benefits of this? Do you have any idea, like, why we should use this instead of view models?
Before we jump into that, maybe could you show us what is this add assisted? Where is it coming from, and where is this add assisted inject coming from?
I think these are circuits functionalities, or no, this is daggers.
Assisted. Yeah, but I maybe
Yeah.
because if you haven't included Dagger yourself, probably they are including it into the circuit library transitively.
I think I have included hilt, but not
okay.
dagger. Let's check.
Yeah, I mean hilt.
So
hilt has that.
yeah, hilt. I've never seen like assisted inject before. It's the circuit that makes me do these things. Also, you have circuit inject. So this is the part that generates the code, I think, connecting the components.
Yes. Yeah, definitely it does some code generation itself. It does have these annotations, like some of these annotations from itself, and then partly they are coming from Dagger. Now back to the thing that you have mentioned before, about why would somebody use this. I think, as I mentioned at the beginning, this definitely works for Slack. They're having some sort of, because I was watching some of the presentations, and they even mentioned that traditionally their code base was based on presenters. So probably, or I'm just making an assumption here, that it was just easier for them to do the transformations with these presenters if they just transferred them to composables. And definitely works for them. I'm not sure how easy it would be for somebody who is just coming as a newbie to the unidirectional data flow that compose is sort of enforcing, how easy it would be for them to use this. So in that sense, I'm not sure. Like, I still haven't found an answer to your question, like why would somebody use this, or how would somebody benefit from this. I still haven't found that answer.
I think when you're writing test cases, it's much easier because everything is like abstracted away and you don't have to care about them. Maybe we can take a look at this presenter's test case.
Mhm.
So,
And they also provide a testing artifact, right?
I'm not sure what you mean.
Yeah, I think there is
So,
additional
for
dependency that they also provide for testing.
yeah, like for some components of circuits like navigator, they have a dependency and fake version that you can use.
Mhm.
So for example, we want to test it and the initial state is loading, I think. So it's we create the use case, we create the here. So we have a fake navigator that they provide. And yeah, this is not. They mentioned that like they put the event sync inside the state, so you can't have some weird events when you're testing, and it makes the test easier. But I can't quite understand what they mean. But yeah, test cases are not so hard because everything is neater and cleaner.
Yeah. And there is also like part of this maybe artifact that they're having internally. It also has the turbine coming from Square that allows you to. I mean, it makes testing flows easier so that you can do these calls like skip items or await item that will help you actually get the next state and then make assertion on it.
Yeah, Turbine is fantastic for testing flows. It makes the job so easy.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I think that's it. We have to take a deeper look. When I find something interesting, I would share it here.
Perfect, man. Thank you so much. Yeah, would be nice. Like maybe we can just explore these further in that project that we are having inside the Android devs community, the open source one. We can just branch off and then try it out, like play more with this so we can understand it better. I would make an attempt to actually invite somebody from the authors of this library to join one of these streams so that maybe they can share a little bit more about it. I don't know if that makes sense, and if they agree, of course.
Yeah. If it happens, it would be great.
Yeah, it would be awesome. All right, then I'm gonna approach them, and then the last thing for today that we have is the work manager. So there was a question in the last stream, but the question was sort of it didn't work. Something didn't work. If I remember correctly, they said like there is one of job that works, but the rest doesn't work. So the question wasn't very clear, and probably it would have required us to take a look into the code. But basically, I'm just gonna give a little overview over the work manager and how we can utilize it. So basically, the work manager is used for persistent work. And when I say persistent work, it means a work that has to be completed at some point of time. Regardless, like it should survive, for example, if the device reboots or if the application restarts, the job will still have to get completed. So in that sense, we can have one-time job or periodic jobs that can be scheduled, and these jobs should be done in the background. Now, of course, there is one, like for the one-off jobs, there is specific scheduling, I should say, that is expedited, which is some work that can be done within, let's say, short period of time. So we can have that. I think that's sort of newer API. It wasn't there initially. What's cool about the work manager is that we can apply constraints on the jobs that has to be done. So for example, we can say, do this job only if you are on Wi-Fi, or only if the battery is at certain, like above certain level, or if the device is idle, for example, when it's, let's say the device is like somewhere on the table, not you are not doing any activity on it. So as I said, we can do different sort of scheduling, like one time or repeatedly. And how this scheduling is managed, it's sort of encapsulated by the library itself. Internally, it is maintaining a SQLite database where it stores the state of particular work and how to, it knows by itself how to proceed. And in that sense, it also takes care of, for example, as I said, when the device reboots, or if the device is in a doze mode, those kind of things. So it also has very flexible retry policy. We can also set, for example, we can highly customize this. What's going to be the back off policy, how many times to retry, and yada yada. Probably the best thing about this is that you can chain works. So like you can have different types of work that you can run, for example, partly in parallel, and then something can depend on another thing, and you can chain it nicely. And I think this is one of the best APIs probably in terms of Android text libraries on Android. So like you can say, let's say you are processing images, and then you have like 3 images that you first want to, let's say, downscale. So you can do that in parallel. So you can run 3 jobs in parallel, and then the next job, let's say, would be I don't know, let's say uploading them. So that next one can wait on all these 3 that are working in parallel to complete before running the next one. And then the next one would be, let's say, uploading to somewhere the images. And an additional thing that I would like to mention in this regard is that the job manager, or the work manager, also allows us to it is compatible with coroutines, for example, or RX if you are using. You can easily use it with, like, if you're having dependency injection libraries, regardless, like it works fine with Coin, with Hilt. And what's great about it is, like, you can define a work, which is sort of a class that specifies, like, you can specify what sort of work you're going to be doing, and in that sense you can abstract away your work and just call it from here, and you can pretty much test it pretty nicely. How the whole thing is going to be done. I would like to tell one story based on this work manager from my experience. I was working in a company, VTransfer, that was dealing with files heavily, in particular, like any kind of files, but mostly images. And for example, the application was having a collection, like you can collect images, and you can group them in folders, do different things. And then basically, if you are having an account, it would store them on a cloud, similar to what Google Photos does, but like not only for photos, but for files in general. Now, I was working in a part of the functionality was that these uploads. And I remember that we had a work manager that would do uploads periodically, like once a day. It would just scan through the files and see which ones are not uploaded, and it would attempt to upload them. And as I mentioned, so we had this worker that was just calling another part of the functionality that was doing the actual uploads. And I test drove that functionality. So apparently the result was that our uploader on Android was having over 90% success rate, whereas on iOS it was around 50%. So that was one of the best achievements ever. And I mean, we had endless source of making jokes to our iOS colleagues. That was really great. So yeah, this is really nice, reliable library. I would suggest if you're having any sort of background work that has to be done, to just use this one. Alrighty, so that should be the stories about the work manager. And let me check the chat. Alrighty, so like we can move to the Q&A, although we are slightly over time, about 10 minutes, well, almost 20 minutes over time. I am okay with that. If somebody has any questions or anything to add, would be great. Otherwise, we can close the stream.
So for me, the first example that you showed, the animation example, was so interesting because with the initial approach, we had like 70, 80 recompositions on the box. But when you applied them on graphics layer, I think there were no recompositions. Maybe in the next session, we can talk about like performance in Compose and why it has so much benefit if you do it there. For me, it was so interesting.
Perfect. For sure. I think we had a bunch of materials inside the community. Let me share maybe. So for the people on YouTube, if you want, you can join us. So this is the community. If you just go to school.com/android-devs, this is the community, you can join us. And here we have lots of materials in that regard. I think for Jetpack Compose, there was somewhere here we made, let me see, I'm not seeing from my external monitor. Preserve lazy column. It was somewhere here. Videos, create, optimizing screen. No. Maybe it was in the articles. Or I'm sure that I've posted it here. Optimizing recomposition. So there is a nice video that I'm talking about recompositions and how actually we can use Lambda to perform to actually something similar to what we did today for the animations, but this is more about like slightly different. But again, it explains the topic nicely. I would be open to actually talk about that more. So let's actually keep that in mind for the next one. And yeah, that would be great. So for the people that are inside the community, I would strongly suggest just search for optimizing recompositions in the search box, find this post and take a look at the video. It's quite short, but it explains pretty well how the optimizations in Compose could be done.
I just found it. Thank you.
Awesome. Perfect. I was not sharing the screen. I'm sorry, but it was definitely shared in the stream. All right, great. Okay, if that's it, I would like to thank everybody for staying in the call and everybody who was following us on the live stream on YouTube. For those people, if you like or subscribe, would be great. So it helps the channel, but also it helps on your side to be up to date with the content that we are pushing on YouTube. And with that, I would thank also Magdi for the insightful contributions today. Thank you so much. It would be great if you can do more of these, like maybe make a presentation or something else of a deep dive that you are doing. I think the posts that you are doing on LinkedIn are great as well. So yeah, would be nice to have more of collaborative sessions.
Thanks. It's such an honor to be here, and I really enjoyed our sessions. Thank you for your support and kind opinion.
Perfect, man. Yeah, you're welcome. Alrighty, thanks everyone. I'm looking forward to see you next week. Until then, cheers.
Bye.
Bye bye.